Because unlike you motherfuckers, I walk the walk and talk the talk, okay? Suck my fucking dick. I had my kid when I was in the process of breaking up with my girlfriend, working as a fucking carpet cleaner, having failed at a fucking school, while fucking losing my house and falling behind on every single fucking bill I had, because that was my fucking life when I worked carpet cleaning, okay? So yes, I did need an abortion, and no, I did not do it, because I do have moral convictions. So suck my fucking dick, you fat ass motherfucking piece of shit that's sitting behind your computer thinking that you know anything about me, okay? Fucking off yourself in a video game. Okay, sorry, continue.
Okay, let's talk about abortion instead now.
Okay.
All right, talk to me. So I don't know anything about your perspective, but yesterday I was talking to a person who was a philosophy major who said that they were a fan of yours, and they constantly brought up your perspective on abortion, and I just wanted to hear what it is, because I really don't know. I've never heard it.
Oh, I feel like it's a really hard thing to define, like when a human life starts, and it seems like the most consistent way to do it is at the moment of conception, because everything else puts you in really weird areas. And then if you believe that a fetus or whatever is a living thing, if you're aborting it, you're essentially committing murder, and it feels like a hard rule to make for society to function if I don't want to be murdered, basically, going back to my descriptive egoism shit.
Okay, so it's a hard rule. So you don't think that, what do you call it? So you don't think that there should be any legislation that goes one way or the other? Because
well, no, I think that, like, in terms of like how society functions, I mean, like, abortion has to be legal. Like, I mean, the idea that I would legislate like my morality to another person like that makes me pretty uncomfortable, especially in an issue as gray as this. I don't think you can do that. And then also, I don't think I mean, people are going to get abortions one way or another. I think that we should reduce the amount of abortions in the United States as much as possible, and the best way to do that is through like contraception, sexual education, like stuff like that, access to.
Yeah. Okay, we're in agreement there. I guess. Okay, so so because it's descriptive egoism, you're saying that you as a fetus would not have wanted to get murdered, and that, you know, that's the reason why you don't think any fetuses should get murdered, if that's what you consider to be abortion, right?
So I don't want. So basically, So my ethical position is descriptive egoism, right? I don't really believe in morality or any of that exists, right? My normative position is I'm a rule utilitarian. So that means that I want to make the rules in society that I think will most benefit me, okay? One of these rules that I think shouldn't be made is that it's okay to kill people without good reason. I don't think it's okay to kill somebody unless you have a really, really good reason to kill somebody. That would be a rule. And when you do an abortion, you're basically saying it's okay to murder some people because they're very inconvenient to other people. And that's a rule that...
It's actually good.
Okay, that's a rule that, like, if you craft that rule, I feel like you could, I feel like at some point in my life, I might become vulnerable to crafting that sort of rule, and that would be worrisome to me. That's kind of the position that I take on it.
Interesting. So, correct me if I'm wrong here. So you are under the assumption that, like an abortion, like a fetus has a personhood, and you also admit that, like murder in some respects could be reasonable or acceptable under what you just described. Do you think that murdering a fetus, like, I guess my question is, do you think a fetus has personhood? And also,
what do you mean by
like
personhood?
In a similar fashion to like animals and whatnot? Like we've had this conversation before on like the veganism debate, but do you think that a fetus, especially like a fetus that has no viability outside of the womb, and this is not even under like modern medicine, I'm talking like viability outside of the womb without any sort of other fucking additional like technological achievements or technological advancements, do you think that anything before that point, a fetus, does that fetus have personhood?
Yeah, I would say at the moment of conception.
Okay. Wait. What? At the moment of conception? Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Wait. Can you define why you feel that way? Like what?
Because that's like when the first thing that you are is like created is like at the moment of conception. That like a fertilized egg is like the very beginning of like your, I guess, unique sequence of DNA or whatever.
Okay. I was not expecting that. Okay. So, so for you, I guess personhood just means like. Under your boundaries, is personhood just anything that could even become a person, like in the conceivable future?
Well, I guess it's whatever we consider a person to be. I don't know what. I mean, like that's kind of this is the problem is that like abortion debates they get like this, like I guess like philosophical get like very, very, very strange very quickly. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
know this is more of a. I mean, I guess this is more of like a morality, or this is definitely a philosophical conversation. And I think abortion is that 100%. Either it's like religious morality or traditionalism, but usually what's guiding this conversation, at the heart of this conversation, is I think
When is
a
a
fetus
person a person? Yeah.
Yeah, what makes a person is a fetus a person, and viability, like, or allowing the fetus to exist inside of the host, even if the host is going to have like actual harm. Is that okay? Or if we were to have a antinatalist, pronatalist debate, then that would be a little bit different. That would be more about like assigning a value to existence. And if you have a negative, if you assign a negative value to existence, then inherently all births are a selfish act. Which we don't have to talk about that right now, though. That's a fun conversation too. But so given that we're talking about personhood, what defines a person, and is a fetus a person? You said that life begins at conception. A fertilized egg is immediately a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but you also understand, or you also admitted earlier that there are certain rules that could allow you to murder someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that if the person is completely like the fetus that you would consider to be a person, cannot even exist without the host, like at that point,
Mm-hmm.
it cannot exist whatsoever without the host, and is requires a tremendous amount of physiological damage or emotional harm, then don't you think that it's acceptable to let the other person make that choice? Like when does it supersede? When is the baby's personhood or the fetus's personhood outweigh the interests of the mother's personhood?
I think it's really hard to say that if somebody is incredibly inconvenient to you, it's okay to kill that person. That seems like a really big line to cross. Basically, like the way that I kind of test these arguments is like if I were to like draw the comparison to a 1-year-old, would I still be comfortable making the same arguments? And usually the arguments that pro-choice people make from a philosophical point of view, I'm not comfortable making. So people's like, well, this is like something that's going to be like heavily dependent on you. It's like, okay, well, a 1-year-old is heavily dependent on you. Like, is this something that like, I would be comfortable saying, like, well, could we kill a 1-year-old for this? And generally the answer comes down to no for that for me.
So you're uncomfortable killing a 1-year-old, but you understand that there's like, or do you think that there's a distinction between a 1-year-old and another, like, in a fetus, like a 1-day-old?
It doesn't
fetus?
seem like it, but I mean, well, like there are differences obviously, but not things that would make you a person or not make you a person. That doesn't seem to be the case. Or if there is, if you have any good ones, I'd like to hear them.
Like a 1-year-old, the most important one being that it's not just a fertilized egg. A 1-year-old has fully formed. 1-year-old is like fully formed outside of the body.
Well, so
has
this isn't
viability
true, right?
outside of the
we're
body.
already into big problems because that's not true. A 1-year-old's not even close to fully formed. You're not fully formed until you're 25 or 30.
No. I meant like fully formed as in you have your fingers and your eyes and ears.
We're running into lots of problems, right? You already see we've already gotten like way off. Like you have fingers and ears like in the womb.
You
like,
have
like,
some form of you have sentience and definitely some form of consciousness that is developing. I know that you could technically say that about a fetus as well, but I mean you have processing power in there at that point. You have a brain, and it's growing, and it's not and it's in its infancy stage, but. That's why I talk about viability outside of the fetus without any sort of medical intervention whatsoever.
Sure, but like literally, like every single trait you just gave, we can find at like different points of development for a person, right? And it seems strange that any one of these...
you can't find it. No, but you can't find it in a fucking fetus is what I'm saying. That's the whole point. That's the whole difference. That's why I wouldn't advocate to murder a fucking full-grown human being, regardless of whether or not they have like all elements of sentience or all elements of personhood. But a fetus does not have those things. That is the designation, or that's the distinction between why you don't think Plan B is murder, or maybe you do. I don't know, but you just said life begins at conception, so someone technically taking Plan B would be murdering.
Yeah, because you're aborting an
life,
already conceived egg. Yeah.
Versus a 1-year-old is not the same.
Well, I mean, I would argue that it seems to be. Yeah.
Wait, you actually? So you think that? Okay.
You have to because Plan B is the ejection of a fertilized egg, right? That's my understanding of what Plan B is.
Yeah. So, and to the people who are saying, "Holy shit," I think Destiny is at least one, being honest about it, two, thinking about this seriously, and and three, his perspective, he admitted, does not impact his decision on legislation. Like all right? If I'm not mistaken, you're pro-life when it comes to, I mean, you're pro-choice when it comes to legislation, right?
Correct.
Okay, which is why I think this is interesting. Most people are dishonest, in my opinion. I think that most people that claim to be pro-life are dishonest if, for example, they make distinctions for rape or murder. Why? I mean, it doesn't matter what the product is. I mean, it doesn't matter what actions led to the creation of life. If you believe a life is a life, and if any fertilized egg is a life and a person, then what difference does it make? It's not the fault of that person that it was a product of rape or
incest. You could make the
incest.
argument there that that person is trespassing and you didn't consent to it in any way, size, shape, or form, or do anything to cause that to happen. And you could argue that people that on the pill or people who take a condom still recognize that there's some percentage chance that you will get pregnant. So you can't just abort something. That would be like the argument somebody would make or could make.
So you're saying that but it's still a person, right? Like, just because it's trespassing doesn't change.
Yeah, but people
that,
say like even if you are
innocence of the personhood, I thought that was what.
Well,
was
no, but it
important.
doesn't matter. You can kill people for
contractual thing.
Some people feel like you can kill people for trespassing. So they would say like here, where you're literally stealing somebody else's like bodily functions, that this represents like a form of like trespassing that you could absolutely kill somebody for.
Well, I think a lot of people consider it to be trespassing, but those people who consider it to be trespassing in the case of rape or incest are still, I guess, agreeing that you can. I guess they're still agreeing to killing an innocent being, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
So
yeah.
ultimately,
Well,
then it's no different.
Well,
then why?
hold on.
It's
not an innocent.
Why can't you expand upon that to say that, well, it's still technically trespassing, even if it's not rape, if you didn't know? Like, what if you didn't have access to the education, which is the reality for a lot of people? You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think that they would say not having access to the education makes it right. And so the argument for like a pro-choice is you're not killing something that's innocent. You're killing something that's aggressing on you. It's violating the NAP, right? It's literally leeching resources from your body, and you didn't necessarily consent to it in that way. So it doesn't get like protections that like a normal person would. It's not like stealing bodily resources.
Okay. Well, the non-aggression principle is a bit of a meme. I don't know if you still believe in that or not, but okay. So from a contractual perspective, this thing that didn't even make a, like, I guess if it's trespassing in your body, it's still not the fault of the fetus, though. You know what I mean? It's like a random fucking being. Like, it didn't consent to being put there to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, a fetus does not have the choice to be in your body. A fetus is just there, right?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think it's a good argument. I don't
understand how it's like. I just don't understand how like it's like people try to make the case that you can abort a baby for rape, but all fetuses are babies.
Yeah, it's probably just a politically expedient position because you don't want to tell rapists that they have to have their rapist baby, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think that at least Alabama is technically consistent. Okay, actually, no, they're still inconsistent, because here's the third part of this conversation that I want to hear your perspective on, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot. So there is still, no matter what, in every case, there is still an arbitrary line drawn where you say abortion is illegal, except in cases where the fetus can cause harm to the host's body.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I mean, I don't think my line is arbitrary. I think my line is like as clear as you can get it to be. But if you think it's arbitrary, then go for it.
No, I'm saying this line. I find this line to be arbitrary in the sense that...
My line?
No, not the line that I just mentioned.
That
abortion should be legal. Abortion should be illegal in all cases except... And I'm using it as the Alabama line.
Okay.
The only line that Alabama drew was if the fetus... if the pregnancy is carried to term, the mother will be harmed by it, emotionally or physically. Right?
Oh, I don't think that's arbitrary. I think that's if you believe in abortion or anti-abortion.
But why? But it's still a life, right?
Yeah, but you're choosing one life or another. You're literally saving a life in that case, would be the argument.
But plenty of people... Okay, so here's the thing that I don't understand then. Why can't it expand upon abortion in the first trimester all the way then? Because plenty of women want to get abortions, not just because of... not just because of financial reasons, but because they experience emotional damage, or even if they're unable to perform in the labor force.
Because I don't think people would say emotional damage isn't a good reason to kill a child or whatever. But they would say that, like,
No,
the life of them.
Alabama is saying that emotional or physical harm.
Alabama is saying that.
Yeah, it's I mean, that's in the writing, that's in the legislation, which is what I don't understand.
Yeah, that seems dumb. Then I don't understand.
Okay, so there is a line though, which is like, how much pain is justifiable for the host to take on for this child that could have been a product of rape or incest, or could have been a product of a consensual relationship, but you just obviously didn't consent to having it in your body, but you no longer can get it. You can't get a contraceptive. You can't do anything because everyone is. It's established that this is a person or a life. Except for that one instance where you can abort it because it causes you emotional or physical harm. Why are we allowing the baby to why are we allowing to murder the baby in that instance but not in others? If it's a life, it's still technically an innocent life, right?
Sure, you would have to ask the people that wrote the law, I guess.
Do you have a take on this, or what? Wait, what would you do in your world?
Well, in my world, nobody would hopefully ever have to have an abortion because things like contraception would probably be freely available to people that can't afford it, and hopefully sexual education.
Wait, can you say that again? You got cut off.
Hopefully people, the way to minimize abortions would be to provide contraception to people probably at no charge if they can't afford it, and then that our sexual education be good enough that people don't think that, like, fucking in hot tubs are ways to not get pregnant.
Okay.
That would be like the way that I would probably seek to get rid of abortions.
Oh no, but I'm saying, but you would still allow abortions to exist even if you offered them everything possible, right?
Well, like in my perfect moral world, no. I guess there would be like a state agency or some shit that adopts out kids or something. I don't know.
So you would in your perfect moral world still force women to carry pregnancy to term.
Yeah.
But you would still provide them with everything, like with all the educational material possible. So is your suggestion in that abstinence only outside of procreation then?
No, I mean, I don't do abstinence only. What do you mean?
Well, the reason why I say this is because I think you and I both agree that we like to have sex not just for procreation but also for pleasure, right? For fun.
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, we do it for recreation and procreation. So you understand that condoms and birth control and all of this still has the capability of failing?
Yeah, very, very rare. But
no matter how educated you are, right? You can even impregnate someone through pre-cum. So my point is, it almost seems like if you made abortion completely illegal, but also gave them all of the educational materials and contraceptives and whatnot and taught them safe sex, there would still be plenty of pregnancies that were unwanted. So what do you do in that instance? Now you've made abortion illegal.
I mean, shit happens, but I mean, the people would carry them to term, and then you would adopt it out to whatever state fucking meme in like a perfect world, I guess, that would take care of them, or put them up for adoption or something.
Sorry. Oh fuck. So you don't have a problem with telling people to carry their pregnancy to term because of an accident.
Nope.
Even if it's
in this flawless world that we've created, no.
In this flawless world, it would probably still be a little flawed given the fact that they have to carry pregnancies to term because of an accident, but
well, right now, there's a fuck ton of reasons why it would be fucked up to suggest that. One, the support that we have for single parents in the United States is fucking abysmal. So it seems kind of fucked up to say, hey, you need to carry your child to term, but once it's born, you're totally fucked. You're on your own. Good luck. Two, access to contraception is really fucked. You've got a much higher chance of having access to it if you're in a socioeconomically advantaged position. Three, the amount of people that are going to get pregnant and be affected by this is going to be disproportionate because poor people are more likely to fuck around than wealthier people because they have less shit to do. I'm sure there are other reasons too why it would be fucked up to do stuff like this as well. But I mean, like, yeah, this is not good in the world that we have today. That's why my policy position today is that
I was just using I forget what the statistic is. I was just using statistics in regards to like what percentage of times the condoms fail
Perfect use fail rate for a condom it's either 98 or 99%, I think. And then the pill is like 99%, and then real world use I think is for a condom is less than 90, I think, and then the pill is like I think 95.
I thought it was 15% failure. But even if you're like double strapped in the sense that one party is on birth control and the other party is using condom, there's still an opportunity to impregnate the other person and fertilize
that's
an egg.
Very, very, very rare.
It is very, very rare. I'm just saying that, but there is still a likelihood, even though no one wants to have sex with a condom, including yourself. I've heard you talk about this a million times over. So greatly reducing the recreational aspect or the maximization of your recreational aspect. So there's still a percentage even in that world where people are having the most boring sex possible because they're terrified that abortion is illegal, even though they have access to all of these educational materials and contraceptives and whatnot. I feel like still carrying a pregnancy to term in that instance is still kind of torturous. Like it doesn't change the fact that
okay, why should you be allowed to? Okay, well, sure. So I understand. The positive for mine is very hard to defend, and we can run through all of these arguments, and it's very difficult. It's a very, very difficult argument. What is the positive argument that you give them? When should you be allowed to kill somebody?
Oh, I don't ascribe personhood to a fetus. I say not? Like I have a
why not?
Personally. Oh, why not?
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It doesn't have consciousness. It doesn't have any.
Okay, wait. So
it doesn't even have the capability of consciousness.
Okay, one at a time, instead of saying 50 million things. Okay, so consciousness, is that going to be your bar for when something?
No, well, why? I'm not gish galloping. I'm giving you multitudes. Like,
yeah, but I want to just go through the arguments one at a time instead of laying out 50 things.
Okay, we can do. Okay, but then don't let your first question be, okay, is that it? Consciousness? No, obviously consciousness is not the only reason for.
Okay, so.
Not the only reason for personhood. I'm going off these. I mean, I'm making this up on the spot. I need to probably think about it a little bit more, if we're being honest, of like what makes it a person. Because currently it's just my feelings. If we're being honest, like I don't feel like a fetus is a person. But I would have to think about it a little bit further, and I'm doing that right now. But consciousness, let's say, is one. But it's not the only reason, okay? Don't forget that. You wrote it down?
Okay. Sure.
So I don't want you to turn around and be like, oh, well, what about a fucking 95-year-old? Like, that doesn't have consciousness. Okay, there's multiple reasons. Okay. So that's one. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to talk about consciousness as a standalone?
Sure. So why does consciousness make you worthy of being, like, considered for life or whatever?
I think morality, like a moral agent, moral agency is something I care about. Humans are technically moral agents when it's combined with obviously other factors as well. But consciousness in that sense is important to me to distinguish whether something is a person or not, especially because this is causing harm to the body that does not want it. It is like a parasite.
Okay, so we value consciousness because of moral agency, and what else?
What do you mean we value consciousness because of moral agency, and what else? We value it because we assume that we have it.
Oh man. You've given me two arguments so far that every vegan will give you for veganism. But I won't take you down that road, right? Vegans argue that we should value all sentient life because we are sentient, but
Yeah, all sentient.
Okay, but I guess we won't go through that. So,
but your counter to that, which you have told me in the past, is that you ascribe like humanhood a different value, a personhood a different value, just by virtue.
No. That's a hypothetical argument one could posit. My actual position is that I don't give a fuck about animals because animals will never hurt or harm me for fun.
My actual position is that I don't give a fuck about animals. And there are definitely species of animals that I understand that we're conditioned to give more fucks about. Okay. So we're in agreement.
Okay. So one of the reasons why you value consciousness is because it makes us moral agents. Do you believe that a 1-year-old is a moral agent?
A 1-year-old has the capability of being a moral agent more than, like, your chances are a lot higher of becoming a moral agent than a fetus, like a 1-second-old fetus.
So you really think that 1-year-olds can make moral decisions?
No, I'm saying that a 1-year-old's capabilities increase. Like a 1-year-old's
So,
capabilities.
but
It's a
but they're not.
viability outside of the. It's a viability outside
Okay,
of the body
okay,
argument.
whoa. We're just
Basically.
focusing on
Like,
one argument, not viability, not whatever. We're
no, I'm
talking
saying
right
that
now
like
very
once
clearly.
you're outside of the body, your likelihood of becoming a moral agent, or your likelihood of like you're going down the natural trajectory of becoming a moral agent.
Yeah, but that's
Without
happening
the
when you're
host.
in the body. What do you mean? That
But
happens when
without
you're.
no, I know, but you're no longer tied to the fucking host. I think that's a pretty significant difference.
Okay, so but now we're going to a different argument now. So do we want to abandon consciousness?
Well, that's
or?
why no, because I said that it's obviously a multitude of different factors. Not every single one of them could stand alone.
Well, no,
Like,
it's not about standing alone. It's about whether it contributes to your argument whatsoever. And consciousness
Oh,
doesn't seem to
oh.
contribute whatsoever because you're saying consciousness is important because of moral agency.
Well, I said that I believe that I have consciousness, and I believe that a fetus does not have consciousness, and that consciousness is important because that's how we describe or consciousness, and becoming a moral agent is something that we seem to value, and I value, and other human beings value as well.
Okay, so consciousness is something that we should value. When you say consciousness, the reason why you value it is because do we want to get rid of the moral agent part, or
What do you mean?
like what? Like why do we care about? Like it seemed like you were saying
No,
like a
it's just
1-year-old
that,
isn't
no,
a moral
you asked
agent.
why do you care about consciousness, and I said consciousness is indicative that someone has the capacity to be a moral agent, or was a moral agent at some point, or could become a moral agent at some point.
Wait, do you think animals are moral agents when they're conscious, or?
No, I not as a standalone. Like consciousness is that's why I said is a signal that it could become a moral agent. Animals are not obviously moral agents. No.
Okay, so then we
But
don't
animals-
care about consciousness
Oh.
at all. We just care about somebody being a moral agent, and consciousness is a signal that they might become a moral agent.
Okay. I'm saying that that's why I started off the conversation by saying consciousness is only one element, and it's not.
Yeah,
it's
but you're
not
treating it when
the
you say
only
one element, you're making it sound like what that means is that every time you can't substantiate anything on one claim, you can just bounce around to
You got
another.
cut off. Can you say that again?
Sure.
I couldn't hear anything.
It sounds like when you say, well, it's just one part, you don't mean that it's just one part. What you mean is like anytime you can't defend one point, you can bounce to another one and just forget the past one. So I'm just trying to figure out why does consciousness.
It works. No, I said, and I started off this conversation that it's not a standalone thing. You're trying to play down the same vegan argument that it's like a single factor that contributes independently. If a single factor was the reason, if we were talking about a single factor, I would say personhood. Then you ask me what to describe personhood, which opens up an entirely different conversation where I'm going to give you multiple reasons why I think personhood is important, or what a personhood would signify, and what are those. So obviously, those things are not going to work as a standalone in and of itself. So
Okay,
why
no,
are
no.
you
So
trying
it doesn't.
to?
It doesn't.
So why are you trying to pinpoint them piece by piece and attack the argument when you know that it's a collection of multiple things that human beings are not?
Because it's not.
It's very complicated, as you admitted already.
Because it's not a collection of things. That's the problem, okay? So let's say, for instance, you would ask me, why are cars cool? And I give you 3 reasons. And I say, well, I think the color of a car, how fast a car goes, and the type of transmission. Those are the 3 things that make cars cool. And you would go, okay, well, let's talk about the color. And I go, okay, cool. And I'm like, well, so if a car is, let's say your favorite color is blue. Mine is blue, okay? And I'm like, okay, cool. And you're like, well, if a car is blue, is that like enough to make it a cool car? Then I would say, well, no. Now a blue car gives it a plus, that's a bonus, but that's not the only reason it's cool. That's just one part of it. But I like the color blue, so a car being blue is a positive thing. That means that the color is part of my argument, okay? In that case, it works. But let's say instead, let's say I say, oh, well, I like the color red because red cars are fast. And then I go, well, hold on. Well, it sounds like the color isn't important at all. You're just saying that you like fast cars. I go, well, no. The color is important, but red cars tend to be fast. And then I go, well, hold on.
Wait.
It sounds like you don't care about the color of the car then. What you really care
Wait,
about is
are
something.
you-
No, let me finish, please. Let me finish. Oh my God, please.
You're confusing me. You're confusing me. Do you not want me to stop you? Or
Okay, yeah,
do you
go.
want me to? Okay. Am I not allowed to be confused? Like, I'm admitting that I'm confused. Why are you getting fucking so mad? Holy shit. Jesus Christ, dog. Okay. All right. So you need to walk
Go
me
ahead,
through
Hassan.
the
You have
analogy.
30 seconds to respond.
I apologize for not being able to understand the analogy that you were making.
Okay,
you
can I
say
explain the
things like-
analogy?
you can, yeah.
Okay.
Well, all right.
Okay,
Do it
so
again, I guess.
I'm asking you, why is consciousness an important thing to determine if something is worthy of life? And then you're doing 2 things. One, you say, well, because it makes you a moral agent. And then I say, well, do you think that everything that's conscious is a moral agent? We're going, well, no. consciousness is just part of it, and then you retreat to that. But it's like, well, hold on, okay, I understand consciousness is a part of it, but how? And it seems like you want to keep getting off of consciousness and talk about something else. So it sounds like consciousness isn't important. Much the same in the car analogy, where if somebody says, I like red cars because red cars are fast, okay, well, it sounds like you don't really care about the color, you just like fast cars, and red cars tend to be fast, but you don't care about the color, because the color in and of itself doesn't bolster your argument for why a car is cool. Much the same way that for you, consciousness doesn't bolster why something should be worthy of life. It's just a proxy for some other trait, like moral agency or something.
Do you not? Okay, here's the difference, and I'm going to try to use your analogy in the way that I understand it, and I might totally fuck it up, so don't get mad. I'm saying that I like cars for 3 reasons, and you're asking me what those reasons are. I give you the first reason because, you know, cars are red. Not all. I mean, let's in this circumstance, all cars would have to be red. Then I'm telling you that I'm not telling you that like I like some cars that are red. I'm telling you that I like cars. And if being red is one of the byproducts of being a car, then all cars have to be red. All human beings have consciousness, and one of the reasons why consciousness is important, a precursor to why consciousness is important, or a precursor to consciousness is what I was describing to you ahead right up until you made the car analogy.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, I don't agree with your description of consciousness there, because I don't believe that all conscious things are moral agents. And you use moral agency to defend why consciousness was an important part of endowing somebody with protections of life.
Moral agency. Sorry. Okay. All right. So if I flipped it, would you be more comfortable with that then?
If you use moral agency instead of consciousness?
If I said moral agency, but babies don't have, fetuses don't have moral agency, but babies don't have moral agency as well. That's why I said a capacity to develop moral agency. Fetuses have that as well, but babies have that outside of the body, outside of a different fact, outside of.
So again, you just bounced to another argument. So you said moral agency, and then you realize
it doesn't work on its own.
No. It doesn't work at all. That's my point. I'm not saying that it doesn't have to work on its own. But you literally said a moral agent, and you said, well, hold on, the capacity to develop moral agency, and they said, well, hold on, I understand that fetuses have that. It's the fact that they're viable outside of the womb. That means that moral agency has nothing to do with it. Capacity to develop moral agency has nothing to do with it, because you just said it's the fact that they can exist outside the womb. So then that's our next argument. Then that's what you're actually talking about. The moral agency doesn't have anything to do with it. It's the capacity to exist outside the womb.
No, I'm saying, okay, no. What if I were to say moral agency out, the capacity to develop moral agency outside of the womb? Would you be more comfortable with me describing it that way rather than just saying moral agency?
Sure.
Okay, so that's the factor then. Okay, that's a little bit better. We're working through it together. Sure. I'm not very. I guess I'm not very good at arguing my position in this way.
Well, no, it's not that you're not good at it. It's
a capacity to develop moral agency outside of a host body that you are directly tied to.
Okay. So maybe instead then of getting this capacity, it seems like the more important part here.
I thought that those were 2 separate factors, though. Like, I thought that those were... that's what I was using.
Well, I mean, I would argue that every human has the capacity to develop moral agency. I don't think that this is like an important thing, and we're saying outside of the womb. So what we're really talking about is like viability outside of the womb. That's the important thing that we're talking about, right?
And it's not just viability outside of the womb. My arbitrary boundary on this is viability outside of the womb without significant medical intervention. And the reason for why I say that is because I know that medical advancements are going to make it so that viability outside of the womb is now at, I would say, 5 months or even before that.
So what about children that are
babies don't have like a fully formed fucking even when it still doesn't even look like a fucking human is what I mean.
Okay, but now we just stepped into another huge pit, because what about children that are born at term, like they're full term or whatever, and they're born and then they need medical assistance in order to survive? Should we be allowed to kill these children if we don't like them?
No, because the difference there is that you've already made the choice that you want to have that pregnancy, and plenty of people should be able to have the right to abort the pregnancy if they think that a medical intervention is necessary for them to survive.
Okay, but wait, what if you've made the choice?
It is actually one of the legal exemptions that you have.
What if you made the choice to have a pregnancy at 2 months and then you wanted to have an abortion at 6 months? Should you be allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so then if you've made the choice to have a pregnancy and then the child is born and it's got a few medical problems that require it to be hooked up to like a bypass for a month, why shouldn't you be allowed to abort that?
Once it,
1 month old child?
once the child is born, or viability outside of what do you call it? That's why I said viability outside without medical intervention.
And I'm giving you the examples.
You've already given the birth. You've already given birth. There's another. That's another. You're going to get mad at me, but there's another distinction between a baby and a fetus that is in your womb.
Okay, what is the distinction?
It's not. It's no longer connected to the host body.
Okay, so we have 3 different things right here. We have the fact that the baby is not inside of you is one thing.
Wait, can I just pause for 1 second? How the fuck can you dumbasses actually go, I agree with Hassan, but Destiny is owning him hard. But like, how can those two factors coexist in your mind? Don't you think that that's indicative of how fucking dumb you are if you genuinely think that someone who you're agreeing with is
what?
owned
No,
by
you're making
someone?
the Digibro argument. No, you're making the Digibro
argument. Actual fucking logic.
No,
dumb
hold on.
motherfuckers.
Hassan, you can agree with your ideas, but maybe Destiny is more strategically taking you down in the debate.
Destiny is better than myself.
No, this is not this is not rhetoric. This is logic. We're exercising arguments right now, not our rhetoric.
This is so fucking dumb. Like people are literally admitting that they're stupid in this instance. If
No,
that's something that's like, hey, I know that you're right or I agree with you, but this other person seems more right. That's literally what they're saying.
All right, everybody, vote for who you want to keep, not kick.
Okay, wait, hold on, Raj. Go on. I'm sorry I got fucking so triggered, but like people kept saying like, oh, loser POV. I agree with the song.
Okay, keep in mind that like what you're trying to do is impossible. You're stepping into the minefield of this abortion argument that I've had like a trillion fucking times on stream without having thought about this like a lot on your own. Like this is gonna be a really fucking difficult argument to do.
I mean,
right?
I've still thought about it a significant amount. Just because I haven't had these debates or whatever doesn't change that reality. No, don't give me any fucking concessions. Like you're let's keep having this conversation.
Okay.
So, what was the last question that you? What was the last question that you had?
Okay, so we have like a multitude of things that we're kind of juggling here. Okay, we have viability outside of the womb without significant medical intervention. It seems like this doesn't matter because it seems like if I give birth to a child that needs medical care up to 1 or 2 months, you wouldn't be comfortable with me killing that. But then it seems like it's because you make a distinction between a baby that's in or out of the womb, which makes it sound like then what really matters is like the birthing process. And then we brought up earlier the fact that you've made the choice to have a pregnancy, although that doesn't seem to matter because if you choose to have a baby and then it's 6 months old and you choose to kill it, it seems like, well, no, that's not okay because of some reason there's a difference between a baby in and out of the womb. So it seems like in all of these things, what we really need to focus on is that there's a distinction between something that has been born or birthed and something that hasn't been.
There's a separate distinction between something that has been born and then another distinction between a fetus that hasn't been born yet, that is in the second or first trimester or even third trimester. Yes, that's so those are 2 separate instances, I think. It's not the same thing. Like I categorize it as different things. Like that's why I don't have a problem with first trimester abortions, which is just a very easy, very simple, not even a invasive medical procedure where you just take a fucking pill.
Mm-hmm. Can I wait real quick? Hold on.
Abortions.
There is a lot of fucking dipshits in your chat. There were 3 people that I've seen say this. I hope Destiny never needs an abortion, blah, 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 blah. I absolutely 100% would have gotten one because unlike you motherfuckers, I walk the walk and talk the talk, okay? Suck my fucking dick. I had my kid when I was in the process of breaking up with my girlfriend, working as a fucking carpet cleaner, having failed at a fucking school, while fucking losing my house and falling behind on every single fucking bill I had, because that was my fucking life when I worked carpet cleaning, okay? So yes, I did need an abortion, and no, I did not do it, because I do have moral convictions. So suck my fucking dick, you fat-ass motherfucking piece of shit that's sitting behind your computer thinking that you know anything about me, okay? Fucking off yourself in a video game. Okay, sorry, continue.
Okay, go on. We were having this conversation. Where were we before?
So I'm trying to get the distinction between a baby that's in the womb or a baby that's out of the womb.
Okay, the distinction of a baby that's in the womb and a baby that's out of the womb is that there's no need for the host anymore. So it's no longer up to the host at that point. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay, so it's not without significant.
The reason why I have an issue with the reason why I believe that people should be able to get abortions is because I care about the host. I don't think that sex is only for I don't think that it's only for procreation. I don't think that people should be punished financially or emotionally or physically for an accident, and I justify that by saying that a fetus is not a fetus is not a full like human being or even a baby, and that there are multiple factors that contribute to the fact that it might be a living organism, but it's technically not a person, in a similar fashion to how plants are not persons, or even animals. Certain animals are not considered persons from my perspective and from yours as well. So that's but most importantly, the reason why I'm comfortable with this decision, or the reason why I care about this, is because I care about the life or the personhood and the living conditions of the host parent that is suffering. Because they are suffering if they don't want to have this pregnancy, if they don't want to carry this pregnancy to term. You are causing them unnecessary suffering.
Okay, well, let's try to get like one type of. Wait, so what was like the one argument we can get from that? Or like, what are the bullet points of that? There was a lot of stuff there.
Okay, harm to the host. At all cases, if the host does not want to have this pregnancy, that means that that the child or the fetus that's growing inside of you is causing harm to the host. It's in terms that you will understand. It's like a violation of the non-aggression principle.
Okay, so let's focus on this one then now. Okay, so we're saying harm to the host. What counts as harm?
Emotional harm, material harm, physical harm. These would all be considered harm to the host.
Okay, gotcha. So a 1-year-old can cry a lot and keep you awake at night. I would say that's a type of physical harm. 1-year-old requires a lot of money. That's a type of material harm. And a 1-year-old can prevent you from seeing your friends, and cutting back on your sleep can cause a lot of emotional harm. Why shouldn't you be allowed to abort a 1-year-old?
Because you're allowed to give them up for adoption.
Okay, hold on. So giving something up
which people do, which is the right thing to do if you can't take care of your child. Or the right thing would be to not let this fetus become a child.
Okay, so let's say, for instance, you have a 6 or 7 month old thing that could be viable outside of the womb in some type of medical device, okay? Do you think that instead of aborting something, you should have like a moral compulsion to medically assist this thing outside of the womb and then give that up for adoption?
Wait, sorry, you're saying, would it be okay for you to forcibly get someone to yeet out the baby and put it in an incubator or whatever,
have it
and
surgically removed and then put in an incubator or something?
Have it surgically removed?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting question. It depends on what stage of the pregnancy that you're in, and it depends on how invasive of a surgery it is. You know what I mean? Because like, if you're going to force people to carry the child or carry the fetus up to the second trimester, to the end of the second trimester, so that you can have this medically invasive surgery, even then it's a little. Even then, I would obviously consider the abortion to be the best practice in that instance, in the first trimester or even in the second trimester, if it's if the harm is far too much for the host.
Okay, but so at what point, like, if it can survive outside medically, right? We agree that it's given some like human protections, or no? What do we get there?
I'm saying that if it has viability, if the fetus has viability outside of the womb, then I'm more inclined to agree that there is that is like I'm more inclined to agree that that's going to become a person at some point. You know what I mean? Like that will.
Well, but I mean, fetuses become people at some point.
It's closer to personhood. Yeah, no, for sure. It's closer to personhood, but it's no longer attached to your body, so it's no longer. You can literally just catch and release. It doesn't have to actually impact you in any fashion.
Sure. So does being attached to a body, is that what makes you a person then, or not a person? As if you're attached to somebody else's body?
It's not. No, that is a separate distinction from the personhood. Sure, that's a factor, but the real reason why I'm talking about the attachment to the body is because I'm talking about it from the perspective of the host and the suffering that the host is.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to figure out like why, because you're giving me reasons where you can like abort a pregnancy, but we're still trying to find out like when is it a person, because you don't believe that abortion is killing a person. So that's why we're stuck on this trying to define personhood thing.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, well, if they're still attached to the body,
I don't believe that abortion is killing a person. Yes, and that, yeah, I don't believe abortion is killing a person. You're asking me what is a person, or like what the distinction.
And it sounds like now you're saying, well, if you're
fetus.
attached to a body, that like makes you not a person or something.
Yeah, no. Viability outside of the womb is one of the factors of personhood. Sure.
Okay, viability outside of the womb without medical assistance is what you said, right? I think.
Yeah, viability outside of the womb without medical assistance.
Okay, but then we were trying to drill in on that. Like, so if you're a 1-year-old, or not a 1-year-old, I'm sorry, if you're like a 1-month-old that's still like on some kind of type of medical machine because you're not healthy or whatever, you would consider this a person? Or no? Because it
No,
sounded
that's
like
why
you
I
said
said
you
it-
would, but
no.
then...
Okay, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this because this is no. The most important part of this conversation is personhood.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to define.
This is something that we. I can't. Obviously, I'm not doing a great job defining on my end. I would love to hear your perspective. What you said that. You said that a fertilized egg is a person.
Yeah, because that seems to be the easiest, most consistent way to define it. Because as you can see, when I try to run, because every argument that you're having right now, when Rachel was pregnant, I went through all of these fucking arguments. I spent like 3 months thinking about this every single fucking day because I wanted to have an abortion, because it was going to fuck my life up. And it did. It caused a lot of fucking financial and emotional and material harm to me in those early days. It was a fucking nightmare. So trying to figure out, right, when is a person is essentially what this boils down to.
Wait, what about Rachel?
What she wanted to do, whatever what I wanted to do. She said she was cool with either thing.
Okay, so
So
now I'm beginning to understand why you had this is so like this is a blind spot that like academic philosophy already has, but I understand why you considered all of the options, but you actually never really considered the most important factor, which is that the situation that you were under, like emotional, material, and physical harm, was nothing in comparison to what a fuckload of women go through, because your
that has
wife
nothing
at
to
the
do
time,
with
or
any
your
no,
girlfriend.
So every single
your wife or your girlfriend at the time, like she already gave that responsibility over to you, but you didn't personally experience that. So
how did I not
she
personally
obviously
experience?
have an
Wait,
issue
what?
with it, is what I'm saying. No,
Or never.
so
You know what?
she
Actually, none of this even matters, because every single argument you've given me so far is horribly fallen apart. So this is totally not real. This is the definition of an ad hominem. This has absolutely nothing to do with any of the arguments that we've addressed up to this point.
My point was you've contemplated all options, but ultimately, given the fact that is Rachel your girlfriend, wife? I don't know.
She
Or
was
Rachel
my
at the
girl,
time
yeah.
Rachel at the time told you that she was going to do whatever you want to do, which means that she was still accepting, like she was comfortable with carrying the pregnancy to term.
Okay.
Anyway, whatever, but let's keep going. It's not an ad hominem, but it's just the way I was just trying to
You were trying to ad hom me. You were trying to discredit my arguments by saying that there was something in my... Well, no, that was the definition of an ad hominem.
No, absolutely not. I wasn't trying to
It absolutely was.
I'm saying that the way you were contemplating this, the stakes were not the same as all other instances, but it doesn't matter. That's why I'm saying let's move past it. Do you actually understand what I was trying to say, or
yes?
Should I clarify?
What you don't understand is what it was.
The way you were talking about it, the way you were thinking about it, your Rachel at the time was already she was already accepting the reality that she could carry the pregnancy to term. So a big chunk of that emotional material and physical harm to the host goes out the window when you're contemplating it, because the person who would experience that more severely than yourself, or the person who would always experience that in every single instance, no matter what, is saying that she's accepted taking on that burden.
Okay, so an ad hom is when you overtly attack somebody or more subtly cast doubt on their character or personal attributes as a way to discredit their argument. So nothing that we're talking about right now has anything to do with any of the arguments we listed earlier. You're just saying that because I didn't experience as much material harm as Rachel, who was actually carrying the child, that somehow this should be taken into consideration when considering our earlier
I'm saying
arguments.
that you were thinking for two people, but the second person in this conversation had already accepted the reality that she was going to carry that pregnancy to term, if you came to terms with that as well.
What does that have to do with any of the arguments that we said earlier?
What
does that have to do with any of the arguments that we've been giving earlier, though?
Because she had accepted it. So therefore, when you're considering the emotional suffering that your partner is going to go through, she's already accepted that. She's already taken on that burden. Most people don't take that burden. That's what I'm saying. Most people don't want to take on that burden.
Okay.
Does that not make sense? Do you not understand what I'm trying to say?
I understand it, but it just has nothing to do with any of the arguments that we're having. Like,
she chose to carry the pregnancy to term already when she gave the responsibility over to you, because you had two options. You could have said no, you could have said yes. But the fact that she was comfortable with the yes option that you could come to terms with, which you ended up coming to terms with, means that she was also comfortable with that yes option.
I understand that, but that still has nothing to do with
meaning
any of the arguments we had earlier. It doesn't. How does that relate to any of the arguments we had earlier?
Well, you use this as an example of like, or I just thought it was an interesting way that you came to that conclusion, and it kind of I understand a little bit more about your way of thinking. If that was the example that led you down this like philosophical contemplation.
Sure.
Anyway, I wasn't trying to personally attack you at all. By the way,
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Wait, hold on one second.
Okay. Anyway.
There have been 3 instances in my life where I've tried to give a personal example to make an argument, and I usually don't like doing that because I don't like arguing in that way because I think it's a really poor form of rhetoric. And every single time I've done it, the person has flipped the argument back on me and tried to compromise my argumentation because I used a personal anecdote. It happened with that one Irish dude for the rape shit. It happened with the domestic abuse shit, and then it just happened now with the abortion shit. I hate giving personal examples because people will instantly turn it around and try to ad hom your arguments, even if you felt like you were in the right with every argument earlier. It really triggers the fuck out of me. Holy shit. Okay, sorry, I had to cough a lot. Okay, what's up?
All right, go ahead. Personhood.
Yeah, I don't feel like we ever got to it. I mean, we were stuck.
No,
now we were at like whether or not you're attached.
No, I'm saying I want to hear your perspective on what.
I say at the moment of conception. It seems to be the most clear, consistent way to do it.
Okay. Why?
Because all other answers seem to fail a multitude of litmus tests, which is what we just went through now. Is trying to define it in any other way seems to open yourself up to a lot more harm.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, and I might totally be wrong. So you went through every single factor of personhood, and you came to the conclusion that it's impossible. Like you came to the conclusion that it's very difficult at the very least to define personhood or reduce it to multiple factors, so that a fetus is a fetus would be a person.
Yeah, it seemed really hard to make a case where this is a bar that I can set that every single fetus will fail and every single human being that we consider normal humans will pass. It seems impossible to do that. It feels like playing the name the trade argument with vegans and animals, which is also an impossible measure to pass.
Yeah, but you understand that when you're doing that, you understand that there is an almost undefinable element that allows us to feel differently about humans.
Sure, if you want, you can do that. But this is now we're
non-human and non-human animals, and I'm saying that it is a
yeah, this is if you want to do this, you can do this. But now we're appealing to some form of intuitionism. If you want to do that, then we can. But then we can throw out all the other waste of time bullshit like logical arguments we made earlier. We can just appeal to intuitionism. But I have problems with intuition for a whole bunch of other reasons.
But wait, hold on. So we said like consciousness. Another one that I was going to bring up is like the capacity to feel pain, like morality, like the moral agency, capacity to feel pain. These sorts of things I feel like are factors that.
But none of these are factors.
They're factors that contribute to personhood. But no, hold on. No. But not separate.
I can't. This is like you're
not
like
independently.
No,
independently, it's not a.
They don't at all. You're weaseling. You're trying to like weasel in like a bunch of arguments that we've already disproven.
Wait, I'm not.
It is though. Capacity to feel pain doesn't count. Fucking fetuses could feel that at an absurdly early age when none of us use capacity to feel pain. That's like a pro-life argument. And then moral agency isn't something that 6 months olds have. They don't have moral agency. So these are both things that we've thrown out completely. So we can't just bring them up quickly and hope to not address them again.
I'm saying that it is all of these factors that have to work together, or at least a decent amount of them have to exist or have to coexist. Otherwise,
sure. Can I let me? I can still.
I'm trying to.
Sure.
I'm trying to.
Let's stillman. Yeah. So
I'm trying to fucking break this down, piece by piece.
Okay.
In real time.
Sure,
it's not something
I understand. The strongest form of your argument then is maybe we can say that humanity or human or a person is some emergent property of a whole bunch of underlying traits that on their own are actually fucking worthless. That a board or a plank is never a ship, and it isn't even part of a ship. But if we get enough of them together, we can make a ship. But maybe we can make some sort of argument at that point that humanity is like an emergent property of a bunch of underlying physical characteristics or something. Like that would be kind of what we're getting at. Because in that case, then we don't need to individually justify, right? Like if I were to pull a plank up out of a ship and I were to go, well, how is this plank a ship? And you go, well, okay, that's just a wooden plank. But like all of this together can be a ship. If that's kind of, we can do that, I guess.
Wait, I don't get it. Are you using the ship of Theseus like analogy to describe?
No, we can use a car if you want.
All of the factors that all of the factors that I mentioned and more that I'm trying to come to terms with as we're having this conversation is it contributes to what defines something as a person. To contributes to personhood. I'm sure that there is philosophical like materials out there that have gone over this process before me. We could try to find it. Perhaps I could dive a little bit deeper into that without making a fool of myself in front of thousands of people on the internet. But I'm working through it step by step. But what did I tell you from step one is that these do not. It doesn't. It's not enough to just point to a single property. It's not enough to point to a single property to say this is a person. It's a factor of multiple. Like it's a and some of them can't exist, or some of them can exist in every single person. It's not all or nothing is what I'm saying. It's a combination of multiple factors.
Yeah, I just have a hard time seeing how this combination of multiple factors doesn't appear either in
I mean, it's complicated. You admitted it yourself originally.
Yeah, I do admit that it's complicated, but complicated in ways that can be totally avoided if we just say a fetus is a person, because that avoids literally all of these complications.
What do you...
If I just say you are a person at the moment of conception, my argument is relatively airtight. Like, there's not much you can really say. Now, we can try to find ways where it's acceptable to murder people or have abortions. Those are separate arguments. Maybe somebody violating on the autonomy of somebody else's body, even if they don't necessarily know or intend to do it, maybe that's enough to kill a person. We can have that argument. But if we're going to go with the argument that a fetus isn't a person, that argument is incredibly fucking difficult to have, or it seems to be. But if we just say, well, a fetus is a person, now let's find ways where we can kill people, that seems to be an easier argument to win. But this is really hard to try to define a person to some arbitrary point or some arbitrary collection of characteristics that not every person is going to possess.
Wait, hold on. No, I understand it's the harder argument to have rather than a non-aggression principle, which is something that fits in your logical framework, which you already admitted you'd be comfortable with under special circumstances. But I think this is the more interesting argument to have, because this for me is at the heart of this conversation. And I think figuring out personhood and what defines personhood and whether a fetus is a person or not is important to the non-aggression principle argument that we can have on top of this, because then I can be like, hey, this is not just an intruder.
Yeah, but
doesn't have the capacity to consent to being an intruder or not an intruder.
We've drilled down to like where we're getting into like these weird like epistemic realms where we like all of these things are incredibly arbitrary anyway. So I don't think there are good arguments to be had down at this foundational level. For instance, because you could say,
what do you think separates? Okay, but what do you think separates a person from? Do you not think that there are characteristics that separate like different organisms? You already admitted this to when it comes to like eating meat, for example.
What do you mean? Are there things that separate different organisms?
Are there things that separate different sentient beings that
every sentient being is a separate thing. It exists in different physical space. Oh, what's important things are how much utility they provide to me.
And not just not just importance, but I'm saying like you don't have a problem killing a chicken and eating it, but you do have a problem killing your child and eating it. So what is the difference between that? And also, what is the difference between, in that instance, like what's the difference between a child, like a fully grown child, or an adult, or a fetus that's inside of the body? Do you not see that there is a distinction there?
Well, okay, so
especially
the first question
is in the first trimester, that's like the size of a fucking gummy bear and doesn't have like hands or anything like that and can't feel pain and doesn't have brain power at all. And
okay, you have to be really, really careful. You're trying to win with weasel words, and I could say the same thing about people with no. Listen, what you just did was weasel words. Like, oh well, they just have weird fucking hands, blah blah blah. I could say the same thing about people with fucking with cerebral palsy or people with Down syndrome, right? These are weird fucking kids that run into the fucking wall and their faces are all fucked up and they look weird. Like every argument you make about fetus, I could make about some people with some forms of like developmental disabilities, right? And you would never do it. You'd say that's horrible. It's like, okay, well, you just did that to hand wave fetuses.
But they can still exist. They can still exist
fetuses.
outside of the body.
Well, not all of these people can exist without round-the-clock intensive medical care, and some of them have to be permanently attached to machines. They're not viable outside of the womb either, because they need to be attached to certain medical machines as well.
But you can give that responsibility over to someone else.
As you can as well by delivering something before it's reached full term and putting it in an incubator.
Yeah, which is why I said I would definitely be comfortable with that, depending on how invasive the medical procedure is and at what stage this person is in, like as far as the pregnancy goes.
Sure.
That's why I said I was already comfortable with that.
Okay, yeah, I guess then then you get into other weird areas. This argument is so fucking convoluted. You get into other weird areas then where like literally the viability or the personhood of somebody is literally defined by the time's current medical technology, which doesn't feel very satisfying. And I guess we can argue over whether satisfying should be a criteria for if an argument is good or not. But like you're basically saying like, oh well, this fetus at 7 months old, this isn't a person. It's like, well, in 2025 it is a person. In 19 or I'm sorry, like in 1550 it's not a person, right? Well, that's kind of weird. That's just
Wait, but we have taken away. I mean, I think you and I both know that, personhood has been taken away or given to even certain subsects of the population. So this is an ever-changing concept, sure, but that's why I made the distinction of. That's why I made the distinction of not just like personhood that changes in regards to what the current technology is, but just living without severe like medical intervention.
I feel like the best thing for abortion is to focus on the policy arguments and just say,
No, for sure, dude. Yeah, but we already agree on the fucking policy arguments.
Well, yeah, I know, but like the philosophy argument, this argument is so AIDS. Like, I don't do this with anybody anymore. I don't do this with I don't do this with REM. I always tell my fan base that I won't have the same thing with veganism. This debate is cancer because we're getting into areas that are so incredibly arbitrary and undefinable, right? Like, for instance, like people in your chat keep raging me. It's like, oh, Desi doesn't know the science. This is not a scientific question. This is a philosophical question. Nowhere in science do we get a definition for what is a human. It doesn't exist. It can't. We have to arbitrarily value some characteristics that make you human. Nowhere in the scientific literature will you get something saying this is what a human ought to be or this is what a human should be, like, so I mean, like, this whole argument
I know that we're having a philosophical argument, and
but it's a really boring one because like neither of us are going to win this or solve this, and it's like it's so convoluted.
It's not about winning, it's about contemplation, right? I that's what it was for me. I just wanted to hear a fucking person whose opinion I respect tell me what the fuck why he has the perspective that he has. Sure. And try to poke holes in it. Then you can do the same exact thing, which would make my argument a lot better when I'm talking to dipshits. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that this is much worse than you fucking sitting around playing League of Legends all day.
Oh, it's not worse. It's just frustrating for me. I don't mind having the argument like one-on-one with you. Maybe I'm letting chat like influence me emotionally too much. I don't mind having the argument one-on-one with you, but like lefties load up a whole bunch of fucking stupid fucking rhetoric when it comes to having these types of conversations. I didn't know that Destiny has babies himself, or Destiny abandoned his kid, or well, men shouldn't make any statements about women's bodies, or this person doesn't know anything about science. Who's that Aardvark guy? You should drag him in.
Fuck those people, dude. I mean, who cares? Obviously.
Well, no. I'm just saying that having these arguments.
Fucking not look at that shit.
Sure. No. I know. I understand. I'm just saying that like, in combination with like publicly having like a discussion like this, like lefties like load this up with a bunch of cancerous as fuck rhetoric, and people on the right do as well, for sure. I hate being fucking pro-life because then I get a whole bunch of fucking morons on my side that will agree with me for totally different reasons.
Dude, I only yelled once, and that was because someone kept spamming how much you were fucking owning me and also agreeing with me simultaneously.
Okay, sure, but there have been at least
my entire chat's been telling me to take the L the entire time that we've been having this conversation.
But that's not true. You literally have had at least 3 different people in your chat. Overkill X7 is one, and a couple others that are saying like, oh, why is this make this argument at all? He abandoned his kid. I mean, like, people
are. I haven't even been looking at your chat. Why are you looking at my chat?
Because I always read chats when I have these conversations. But
okay, I am not even looking at my own chat because it's fucking pissing me off.
Sure, and I don't care. But listen, I don't care about the chats. I'm just saying like these types of conversations aren't very fruitful. Neither of our positions are gonna be budged. I guess if you're like curious on how like AIDS this conversation is, like that's a way to have it. But like it seems like it's like a not fruitful. Like the policy position, the applied ethics position is more interesting than like the meta ethical position that we're like debating right now, which is like very, very, very fucking weird. Also, if you want to drag that one guy, and you should fucking do it.
It's the part that I don't have an answer for. So I'm trying to find an answer by talking to you. Mm-hmm. Or not. It's a part that I have feelings about, but I'm trying to actually develop them into something more conclusive, or rather than just like I feel like a fetus is not a human being, or I feel like a fetus is not a person.
Yeah, but that's literally all it comes down to, because I say kind of like, oh, well, I think we should define humanity as having like a certain genetic sequence, and it's like, okay, well, why? And it's like, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have a good argument for that either. Like, that's just what seems to be consistent. It seems to work out more consistently with other answers. But like, I don't even know if something this fundamental will ever come up in another type of argument. Like, I don't know if I'll have to consider this type of like really esoteric position when it comes to talking about things like healthcare or immigration or anything like that.
Okay. I mean, and by the way, for both of our chats, obviously we agree in regards to like legislation, and we also agree about the awful consequences of forcing people to fucking carry pregnancies to term and whatnot. Which is why I think you don't disagree with me when it comes to the legislation. So everybody chill the fuck out. This is like Destiny's personal
Okay.
opinion.
Yep, that's true. Also, I have to
in
leave.
regards to
I have to
personhood.
leave in like 4 minutes. Do you want to do viewer dragons?
Wait, what?
Do you want to do viewer dragons? I have to leave in like 4 minutes. I'm going to that fucking place tonight.
What's
I can't say it.
What's viewer dragons? Wait,
Dexter
what?
Morgan God really wants to come on, and so does Aardvark Nark.
Sure, whatever. Yeah, I'll talk to some other people. You're leaving? I don't get it.
Oh yeah, I have to listen. I just really want to shout at some of these people because they're fucking triggering the fuck out of me.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, bring.
I don't know where they are. I don't know who they are. I don't.
All right, well, they're in your. You guys gotta go to Destiny's Discord. That's
No,
where
they're
we're
in your
talking.
Discord. I'm looking at them in your chat. I'm just really curious because they say I know nothing about science. I'm really curious what the scientific
Okay, well,
arguments
let's
I'm
go
missing.
to my. Let's go to my Discord then. Go to my Discord.
Drag him in.
And I'm sure.
I got 4 minutes.
And I'll drag him. All
I'm
right.
excited.
All right. See me in the debate corner. All right.
Destiny, why are you in an open room?
I don't know. Where did Hassan go?
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh God, now everyone's here.
Wait,
fuck.
he knows where Hassan is, right?
No, where is
What
he?
is going on
room?
here? What is
Hassan's in his Discord in a channel called Hosta Base Corner. If that
Oh
helps.
fuck! I'm in my Discord.
Yeah, you're in your
Oh
Discord.
no!
He is too much of
Fuck.
a boomer. To
I'm a boomer. I fucked up.
Okay, where are these fucking people? What are their names?
One was called Aardvark something.
Aardvark? Are they in my? But they're not even in my fucking voice channel. Like they're not even. I'm looking at it right now. Do you see their names in the voice
I
channel?
don't know. I thought they were talking shit so they'd show up and fucking talk the talk, but they didn't. Okay.
I don't have Discord at work, Pepega.